Good officers actually like cameras because they realize cameras can be a protector against false accusations. That's one of the reasons I was actually brought onto the SWAT team. It actually served as a protection to them. I was just in awe as I watched Larry work, as I watched the compassion that he had on these horrific hostage barricade situations where there's a person with a gun, willing to kill anybody, and countless number of times I saw those situations turn out well, or the hostages were saved. After he was a SWAT commander, he was promoted to captain and assigned to the Bolden Area Command. That's located in one of the poorest, most crime-ridden areas of Las Vegas. Probably the toughest place to be a captain in this town.
It was very common that someone commits a crime right in broad daylight in front of many people. The officers come in to investigate that, and suddenly nobody saw anything. Now, what causes that? It's simply a disrespect for law enforcement. Crime was very high. And when I speak of crime, I'm talking about robbery, assaults with a deadly weapon, rape, murder. What I had the advantage of is 25 years before working in that community as an officer. What I saw was that we were doing the same thing over and over and over again, and we got the same results.
And what was it that you guys were doing over and over again?
Trying to arrest our way out of the problems that we had. We failed to connect with the community on any sustained way. So we changed that. The idea was 180 officers going into the field would go out and make 2 contacts a day with anyone of any age, of any status in the community, and simply introduce themselves. Doing that 2 times a day, 180 officers, over a week, over a month, over a year. What does that do? I remember going to a barbershop and walking into the barbershop and having the barbers and the clients, I was in uniform, look at me like, what are you doing here? And I was going to meet the owner of the barbershop who had an issue.
Had somebody on the parking lot I didn't want to have, and I called and he responded. And after that, he gave me his card and everything, and we just, from that, gradually become good friends.
By the time 3 years were up, I was shaking hands and high-fiving the barbers that were in the shop.
He kind of wanted to know the shop owners and different people, so if something was going on, they know who to contact. They tried to build a relationship with all the business owners up and down Martin Luther King.
I worked for Larry Burns at the Bolden Area Command for 3 years. He was my captain, and we really wanted to change the perception of the police in that community, and we did that. We reached out to church leaders, to community organizations, to schools.
When you feed those children, when you have a little barbecue and you give them the only food they've had for that day, that information spreads like wildfire.
What you're talking about is policing with respect, policing with compassion, and I've talked to people that think that makes you a softie. Larry Burns is a softie.
13 years in SWAT, 7 years as a tactical commander, anything but soft. But my experience had taught me that toughness is required a very small portion of the time. But compassion is what really changes a community. And the answer was love. The answer was to care about others the way you care about your own.
The first time I met Larry Burns, he busted me selling drugs in addition to a gun I had on me, and I was a young bad kid that didn't have no respect for even Larry Burns at the time. I was arrested 47 times before I was 19 years old. I was a hardcore gang member. So when I met him, it was just pretty much, you're one of them and I'm over here trying to keep doing the crime and you gotta catch me. So that's how I met Larry. He put the bad cop thing down. We saw them as bad and he would make it personal every time. It wasn't get on the car. It's like, can I talk to you for a minute? You gotta stop it. You gotta stop it and I'll tell you why you gotta stop it. You're better than this. I mean, you sit out here hours at a time selling drugs. It's easier to go get a job and make money, and it's your money. That's what Larry Burns was about. He was about trying to change what the bad in you and make it good. He didn't give up on you. When I got shot at the City Hall, he was the only officer to come and say, "You almost could have died." I remember him coming to the hospital. "Kevin, you're gonna lose your life if you don't, you got a child." I was charged with racketeering and murder, 22 count indictment. And that's the last thing society remembered. Kevin Lay was convicted of first-degree murder. He was 1 vote away from being on death row, and he's gone. While I was in prison, I had committed to myself that I had to do something about this so-called legacy I left out here. Because when I came home, the gang unit and the task force was there watching me like a hawk. Larry Burns took a chance and said, "You're gonna get it right this time." I started as a regular laborer at a construction company, and now I'm the superintendent. He just saw something good in me that later was revealed through some of the things we do now. He had influence, and I did too. And with it together, we knew we could do great things together. "Hey, Kevin, there's a situation where we know this guy has a gun and we can't get it off the streets. I'm not asking you to tell on him. I'm not asking you to do anything like that. But we need this gun off the street. This guy is dangerous." "I agree, Larry. I agree what you're saying. And if I can use my influence, I'll get it." I got the machine gun, and I let Larry know, "The machine gun is behind the store. It's all yours." We got that gun off the street. Whose gun? That's a different story. I can't give you that. You wanted the gun is gone.
The respect is incredible. When you bring a community together, people see that, they feel that, and it changes attitudes. And the citizens knew. They could contact us, tell us what they knew. Now you've got a coalition of good, and good things are happening. Homicides, robberies, assaults, all went down some 60% initially, and it continued from there.
Even though Larry's area, the Bolden Area Command, was the only area in town where crime was actually going down, some of the members of Doug Gillespie's executive staff felt that Larry's methods were too soft on crime, that they needed to send in saturation teams and beef up police presence.
Saturation teams are groups of officers that are gathered together to go in a high crime area. It's a zero tolerance approach to a neighborhood to reduce crime. And it does while the saturation team is in place. The moment that they leave, you have 2 things that occur. An increase in crime again, and you have a decrease in public relations with the police. So I would not allow them access to my area command. That caused a great deal of consternation at